Hello, everyone, and welcome back to English in Advance, your dedicated space for exploring the English language in depth, building genuine confidence, and advancing your skills from intermediate to advanced. I am your host, Jessica, and I am absolutely thrilled to have you here with me today for what is going to be a truly immersive experience. We are about to embark on a comprehensive journey, a daily English listening and speaking masterclass specifically designed for B1 and B2 learners who are serious about breaking through the intermediate plateau. This episode is designed to function like a podcast within a podcast, a long, flowing conversation where we will touch on vocabulary, grammar, pronunciation, and cultural nuances, all woven together into a seamless narrative. I want you to settle in, perhaps grab a notebook if you like to write things down, but more importantly, open your ears and your mind. We are going to speak. We are going to listen, and we are going to think in English. So take a deep breath, relax your shoulders, and let's begin this adventure together. To start our session today, I want to talk about the very concept of learning English through listening, which is the core theme of our time together. Many students spend years studying grammar books, memorizing lists of vocabulary, and taking written exams. Yet when it comes to real-life interaction, they often find themselves stuck. You might understand every word when you read it, but when a native speaker talks to you at a normal speed, it sounds like a blur of sound. This is the gap we are here to bridge. Listening is not just about hearing sounds. It is about decoding meaning, understanding context, and catching the subtle cues that native speakers use constantly. Today, we are going to treat this session as a safe space for you to practice active listening. I will be speaking in a clear, natural voice, varying my speed and tone to simulate a real podcast experience. But I will also pause frequently to explain what we are hearing and to give you a chance to speak. Let's dive into our first topic, which is the power of storytelling and how we describe past events. This is a crucial skill for B2 learners. When you tell a story, you are not just listing facts, you are painting a picture. A B1 learner might say, "I went to Paris last year. It was nice. I saw the Eiffel Tower. I ate bread." This communicates the basic information, but it lacks color and emotion. To elevate this to a B2 or even C1 level, we need to add layers. We need to use narrative tenses effectively. This means mixing the past simple, the past continuous, and the past perfect. Let me give you an example of a more engaging story. Last year, I finally visited Paris, a city I had been dreaming about for decades. As I was walking along the Seine River, watching the sunset, I suddenly realized why people fell in love with this place. Did you hear the difference? I used the phrase "had been dreaming," which is the past perfect continuous. This shows an action that started in the past and continued up to another point in the past. It adds depth and history to the sentence. I also used, as I was walking, the past continuous to set the background scene. The action of walking was happening when the realization occurred. I want you to practice this concept with me right now. We are going to do a visualization exercise. Close your eyes for a moment or just stare at a blank wall and think back to a memorable trip you took. It could be a vacation, a visit to a relative, or just a day out in your city. I want you to focus on the atmosphere. What was the weather like? What were people doing around you? Now, try to construct a sentence using the structure. While I was, something happened. For example, while I was waiting for the bus, it started to rain heavily. Or, While I was looking at the monuments, a street musician started playing a beautiful song. I am going to give you a few seconds of silence to think and speak. Do not be shy. Speak out loud. Your voice needs to be heard. Welcome back. I hope you managed to create a vivid sentence. Remember, when you speak, do not rush. It is better to speak slowly and correctly than to speak fast and lose the grammar. Moving on, let's talk about the vocabulary of emotion and atmosphere. Words like nice, good, and bad are the enemies of the intermediate learner. They are too vague. To truly express yourself, you need precise adjectives. Instead of saying the weather was nice, you could say the weather was delightful or pleasant or surprisingly mild for the season. Instead of saying the food was good, you could say the meal was exquisite or flavorful or satisfying. This precision is what characterizes an advanced speaker. It shows that you have a rich palette of words to choose from. In our next segment, I want to tell you a short story about a mix-up at a hotel. As you listen, I want you to pay attention to the adjectives I use to describe my feelings. A few years ago, I traveled to Italy for a wedding. I had booked a small hotel in the countryside, promising myself a relaxing weekend. However, when I arrived, the receptionist looked confused. She checked her computer and told me that they had no record of my reservation. I felt a sudden wave of panic. I was exhausted after a long journey, and the idea of searching for another hotel in the middle of the night was daunting. The receptionist, seeing my distress, was very apologetic. She offered me a glass of water and asked me to wait in the lounge while she made some calls. The lounge was dimly lit and smelled of old wood, which I found oddly comforting. After 20 minutes, she returned with a beaming smile. It turned out there had been a system error, and they actually had a suite available, an upgrade at no extra cost. The relief I felt was overwhelming. The room was spacious, with a balcony overlooking the vineyards. That night, sitting on the balcony, I felt grateful for the misunderstanding. In that story, we heard several strong adjectives. Instead of just being scared, I felt panic and distress. Instead of just being happy, the receptionist had a beaming smile, and I felt relieved and grateful. We also saw some great collocations, words that naturally go together, a sudden wave of panic, a daunting prospect, oddly comforting, a system error. Learning collocations is the secret to fluency. You cannot just learn the word panic. You need to learn that it often comes in waves. You cannot just learn the word smile. You need to learn that it can be beaming, wide, or shy. Let's practice one of these collocations. Repeat after me, trying to copy my intonation exactly. A sudden wave of panic. Good. Now try this one, a daunting prospect. Excellent. Intonation is key here. In the phrase sudden wave, my voice goes up on wave. In daunting prospect, the stress is on the first syllable of daunting. Now, let's shift our focus to a grammar point that often causes trouble for learners at the B1 and B2 levels. The difference between the present, perfect simple, and the present perfect, continuous. This is a subtle distinction, but it makes a big difference in meaning. Consider these two sentences. I have painted the kitchen, and I have been painting the kitchen. The first sentence, I have painted the kitchen, implies that the job is finished. The kitchen is now painted, and we can see the result. It is complete. The second sentence, I have been painting the kitchen, focuses on the activity itself. It might still be in progress, or we have just stopped, but the result might be messy. Maybe there is paint on my clothes. Maybe the room is not finished yet. This distinction is often used in podcasts when hosts discuss their hobbies or recent activities. They might say, "I have been reading a lot of historical fiction lately," which suggests an ongoing hobby. Or they might say, "I have read 3 books this month," which is a statement of achievement, a completed number. Let's try to use this in a conversation. Imagine we are friends meeting for coffee. I ask you what you have been up to. I want you to answer using the present, perfect continuous, to describe a recent activity. You might say, "I have been studying English every day," or "I have been working on a new project." Now, I want you to tell me something you have completed recently using the present perfect simple. Maybe I have finished my report or I have cleaned the house. Go ahead, speak to me. Tell me what you've been doing. Excellent work. Integrating these tenses into your spontaneous speech is the goal. It requires you to think about your timeline and what you want to emphasize. As we continue, let's discuss the concept of hypothesizing, which is essential for the B2 level. We are talking about conditionals, specifically the second and third conditionals. The second conditional is for imaginary situations in the present. If I won the lottery, I would travel the world. It is unlikely I will win, so it is a dream. The third conditional is for regrets about the past. If I had studied harder, I would have passed the exam. It is too late to change the past, so we use this structure to reflect. Native speakers use these all the time, not just for big life events, but for small daily regrets. If I had known the traffic was bad, I would have left earlier. This is a classic third conditional sentence. It shows cause and effect in the past that did not happen. Let's practice a third conditional shadowing exercise. I will say a sentence and I want you to repeat it exactly, paying attention to the contracted forms. Native speakers rarely say, "If I had known." We say, "If I'd known." We rarely say, "I would have." We say, "I would have," which sounds like "I would be." Listen and repeat. "If I'd known it was your birthday, I would have bought a cake." Try it. "If I'd known it was your birthday, I would have bought a cake." Good. Here is another one. "If he hadn't missed the bus, he wouldn't have been late for work." Notice the negative contraction hadn't. Try that one. "If he hadn't missed the bus, he wouldn't have been late for work." This structure is fantastic for storytelling. It allows you to analyze decisions and their consequences. When you are listening to podcasts, listen for this would've or had've sounds. They often fly by very quickly. Moving forward, I want to talk about something that affects every language learner: hesitation. When you are speaking, you might need time to think. In your native language, you have natural filler words. In English, many learners fall back on and ah, or worse, they just stay silent, which makes the conversation awkward. To sound more like a native speaker, you should learn discourse markers and fillers. Phrases like, "Well, let me see," or "That is an interesting question," or "To be honest." These phrases buy you time while you formulate your sentence. They also make you sound more thoughtful and engaged. Imagine I ask you a difficult question. Instead of saying, "I don't know," you can say, "Well, to be honest, I haven't really thought about that." This is a much more sophisticated response. Let's practice a role play. I am going to ask you a question. I want you to use a filler phrase to buy yourself time, and then answer the question. Ready? Here is the question. What do you think is the most important environmental issue facing the world today? Pause the audio and answer. Remember to start with a filler phrase like, "That is a tough one," or Well, let me think. Welcome back. How did that feel? Using these filler phrases is a habit. You have to force yourself to use them at first, but soon they become second nature. They act as a bridge between your thoughts and your speech. As we move into the next section, I want to touch on the topic of business English and professional communication. Many of you are learning English to advance your careers. In a professional setting, the tone is different. We tend to be more indirect and polite. Compare these two sentences. You need to finish this report by Friday. And I was wondering if you could finish this report by Friday. The first one is an order. It is direct and could be seen as rude. The second one is a request. It uses the phrase, "I was wondering if," which is a softener. This is a key skill for the workplace. Being too direct in English, especially with superiors or clients, can cause friction. We often use the past tense to show politeness in the present. Instead of saying, "Do you have time?" we often say, "Did you have time?" or "Would you have time?" It sounds more distant and therefore more respectful. Let's practice making commands polite. I will give you a direct command, and I want you to transform it into a polite request. Here is the first one. Send me the email. Change that to something like, "Could you possibly send me the email?" Or, "I would appreciate it if you could send me the email." Here is another one. Call the client. You might say, "It would be great if you could call the client," or "Please, could you call the client?" Notice how we use words like possibly, appreciate, and great to soften the message. This is the art of diplomacy in English. It is not just about grammar, it is about social intelligence. Now let's take a journey into the world of idioms. Idioms are phrases where the meaning is not obvious from the individual words. They are the spice of the language. Using an idiom correctly can make you sound very fluent, but using it incorrectly can be confusing. Today, let's focus on idioms related to work and effort. A very common one is to burn the midnight oil. This means to work late into the night. You might hear someone say, "I have a big deadline tomorrow, so I will be burning the midnight oil tonight." Another common idiom is to get the ball rolling. This means to start a project or an activity. Let's get the ball rolling on this project. It is energetic and positive. Then there is to cut corners. This means to do something quickly and cheaply, often sacrificing quality. We do not want to cut corners on this job. It implies a warning. Idioms are often used in podcasts and casual conversation to add color. When you hear an idiom you do not understand, try not to panic. Look at the context. If someone says they are feeling under the weather and they sound tired or sick, you can guess it means they are not feeling well. It is rarely literal. Let's try to use one of these idioms. I want you to tell me about a time you worked very hard. Try to use the phrase, burned the midnight oil. Think for a moment. Maybe you were studying for an exam or finishing a big project at work. Say it out loud. I remember when I was in university, I burned the midnight oil to finish my thesis. Go ahead and try it. As we continue to explore the English language, I want to focus on the rhythm of speech. English is a stress-timed language. This means that the rhythm is determined by the stressed syllables, not by the number of syllables. In languages like Spanish or French, syllables tend to be of equal length. In English, we say a sentence like, "I want to go to the store quickly." The important words, want, go, store, are stressed and take longer to say. The small words, to, the, are squeezed together and said very quickly. This creates a da-da-da-da-da-da rhythm. Understanding this is vital for listening. When a native speaker speaks fast, they are not skipping words, but they are reducing the unstressed ones. The word too often sounds like to. The word for often sounds like fur. The word and often sounds like n. Listen to this sentence. I went to the store for some bread and milk. In fast speech, it sounds like I went to the store for some bread and milk. The meaning is preserved, but the sounds are modified. This is why you might find it hard to catch every word. You are listening for the full form of for, but you hear fur. To improve your listening, you need to learn to recognize these reduced forms. And to improve your speaking, you need to start using them. If you speak with every word fully pronounced, you will sound robotic. You need to learn to squish the small words. Let's practice a sentence with reduced forms. Repeat after me. I have to go to work. We often say, I have to go. Try it, I have to go. Another one. Do you want to get a coffee? In fast speech, do you want to get a coffee? Try that. Do you want to get a coffee? It feels lazy, but it is actually correct fluency. Let's transition now to a topic that is all about personal growth, describing changes. At the B2 level, you should be able to talk about how your life, your habits, or your personality has changed over time. We often use the structure used to for past habits that are no longer true. I used to play the piano. This means I played it in the past, but I do not now. We also use be used to for things that are familiar to us. I am used to waking up early. This means it is not difficult for me anymore. It is a habit. Distinguishing between used to do and be used to doing is a common challenge. Used to do is for the past. Be used to doing is for the present state of familiarity. Think about your own life. What is something you used to do? Maybe you used to play a sport, or you used to eat a certain food, or you used to live in a different city. Now think about something you are used to. Maybe you are used to the noise of the city, or you are used to working from home. Let's practice the second structure, be used to. I want you to say, I am used to living in your city, or I am used to working with computers. The grammar here is be used to plus the ing form of the verb. This is the tricky part. Many learners say, I am used to live, but it must be living. Let's say it together. I am used to living here. I am used to speaking English. Good. Now let's have a listening comprehension segment. I am going to tell you a short anecdote about a friend of mine named Sarah. Listen for the specific changes in her life. Sarah grew up in a small village in the mountains. She was a very shy child who loved reading books alone. She hated being the center of attention. However, when she went to university in a big city, everything changed. She joined a drama club to overcome her shyness. At first, she was terrified, but slowly she got used to performing on stage. Now she is a confident public speaker and works as a motivational coach. She says she still loves quiet moments, but she is no longer afraid to speak up. She has transformed completely. In that story, we saw a transformation. We heard about her past state. She was a shy child. We heard about her process. She got used to performing. And we heard about her present state. She is a confident speaker. The phrasal verb to overcome is very important here. To overcome shyness, it means to defeat or conquer a difficulty. We also heard the phrasal verb to speak up. This means to speak louder or to express your opinion. These are essential phrasal verbs for daily life. If you are in a meeting and you disagree with someone, you might say, I need to speak up about this, Or if you have a fear, you want to overcome it. Let's take a moment to talk about the importance of intonation in questions. In English, the intonation can change the meaning of a question entirely. A yes/no question usually has rising intonation at the end. Are you coming? The voice goes up. A W- question like, where are you going? Usually has falling intonation. The voice goes down at the end. However, sometimes we use rising intonation on a which question to show surprise or to ask for clarification. You are going where? This implies shock. Listen to the difference. Where are you going? Standard falling. You are going where? Surprised rising. Practicing this melody is just as important as practicing the grammar. It conveys your emotion and attitude. I want you to ask yourself a question out loud right now. Ask yourself, what do I want to achieve today? Say it with falling intonation, sounding determined. What do I want to achieve today? Now, imagine you are surprised by your own answer. You want to do what? Try to use your voice to express the emotion. This connects the language to your feelings, which helps memory retention. We have covered a lot of ground today, from narrative tenses and idioms to polite requests and intonation. But there is one more area I want to explore before we move to the next major section, and that is the concept of speculation and deduction. This is when you make guesses based on evidence. It is a very popular topic in podcasts, especially mystery or true crime podcasts, but we use it daily too. We use modal verbs for this. Must be, might be, can't be. If you see a friend wearing a heavy coat and shivering, you can deduce he must be cold. You are almost certain because you have evidence. If you see someone looking at their watch repeatedly, you might deduce she might be in a hurry. This is less certain. And if someone tells you they won the lottery but they are still wearing old clothes and taking the bus, you might say, that can't be true. It is logically impossible. This structure, modal verb plus be, is used for present deduction. For the past, we use modal verb plus, have plus past participle. He must have been tired. She might have missed the bus. They can't have finished already. Let's practice this. Look out of your window or imagine a scene. You see an ambulance outside a house. What do you deduce? You might say, there must have been an accident, or someone must be sick. Try to construct a sentence using must or might. Pause and speak. Great work. The ability to speculate allows you to engage in debates and discussions. It moves you away from simply stating facts to interpreting the world around you. This is the hallmark of a B2 learner. You are not just a reporter of your life. You are an analyst. You can give opinions, make guesses, and weigh possibilities. Let's begin by discussing the future. Talking about the future in English is fascinating because, unlike the past or present, we do not have a specific future tense built into our verb conjugations. Instead, we use different forms to express different shades of the future. This is a critical distinction for B2 learners. A common mistake is to use will for everything, but will is actually quite specific. We primarily use will for spontaneous decisions made at the moment of speaking. Imagine you are sitting with a friend and the phone rings. You stand up and say, I will get it. You didn't plan that. You just decided. Or perhaps you are at a restaurant and the waiter asks for your order. You say, I will have the soup. That is a decision made now. However, much of our future is planned. For plans and arrangements, we use the present continuous tense. I am meeting my boss tomorrow. I am flying to Paris next week. This implies that you have a ticket or you have an appointment in your calendar. It is fixed. Then there is going to, which we use for intentions or predictions based on evidence. Look at those dark clouds. It is going to rain. You can see the evidence. I am going to learn Spanish this year. It is an intention, a plan in your mind, even if you haven't booked a class yet. Navigating these three forms, will, going to, and present continuous, is essential for sounding natural. If you say, I will fly to Paris tomorrow, it sounds like you just decided right now to buy a ticket, which is a very expensive and impulsive decision. Let's practice shifting between these forms. I want you to imagine you have a busy week ahead. I will give you a prompt, and I want you to respond with the correct form. Ready? Prompt number 1. You have a ticket to a concert on Friday. How do you tell me? You would say, I am going to a concert on Friday. Or, I am attending a concert. It is an arrangement. Prompt number 2. You see a heavy box on the floor and your grandmother looks like she wants to move it. You decide to help her. You say, I will help you with that. It is a spontaneous offer. Prompt number 3. You have decided to start a new hobby, like painting, next month. You have the intention, but no class scheduled yet. You say, I am going to start painting. Good. Try to be aware of these nuances this week. Every time you look at your calendar, say your plans out loud using the present continuous. Every time you make a quick decision, use will. Moving on from grammar, let's enrich our vocabulary regarding technology and digital life. This is a topic that dominates modern podcasts and conversations. At a B1 level, you might say, I use the internet a lot. It is useful. But at a B2 level, we can discuss the impact of technology with much more sophistication. We can talk about being constantly connected, the blurring of work-life balance, and the phenomenon of information overload. Consider the phrase to scroll mindlessly. This is a very current expression. It describes the act of looking through social media feeds without a specific purpose, often for a long time. It suggests a passive consumption of content. We can also use the phrasal verb to doom scroll, which means to spend an excessive amount of time scrolling through bad news. Let me tell you a short story to put this in context. Last weekend, I planned to wake up early and go for a run. However, when my alarm went off, I picked up my phone just to check the weather. One notification led to another, and before I knew it, I had fallen down a rabbit hole of news articles and viral videos. An hour passed in the blink of an eye. By the time I looked up, the morning was gone. I felt guilty and sluggish. I realized that my phone had hijacked my morning. That evening, I decided to unplug. I put my phone in a drawer and read a physical book instead. It was a digital detox, and it felt refreshing. In that story, I used some fantastic idiomatic language. To fall down a rabbit hole is a reference to Alice in Wonderland. But in modern English, it means to research or click on a topic that leads you further and further away from your original intention, often on the internet. It is a brilliant metaphor for how the internet works. I also said in the blink of an eye, which means very quickly, and hijacked, which means taken over by force. These words add color and narrative power to the simple act of wasting time on a phone. Think about your own habits. Do you ever doom scroll? Have you ever fallen down a Wikipedia rabbit hole? Try to describe your last experience with your phone using one of these phrases. Now, let's transition to a vital skill for any advanced English speaker, the art of agreeing and disagreeing politely. In podcasts, especially interview or debate podcasts, you will hear speakers navigating disagreements constantly. At a B1 level, you might simply say, "I agree" or "I disagree." But in reality, native speakers rarely say, "I disagree" directly, as it can sound confrontational or rude. We prefer to soften the blow. We use phrases like, "I see your point, but," or "I am not sure I entirely agree with that," or "that is one way to look at it, however." These phrases acknowledge the other person's opinion before introducing your own counter-argument. This is called diplomatic language. Let's simulate a debate. The topic is, social media does more harm than good. I will give you an opinion, and I want you to practice disagreeing politely. Here's my opinion. I think social media is terrible for society because it makes people depressed and isolated. Now, pause the audio and respond. Perhaps you could say, "I see what you mean about mental health, but I also think it helps people stay connected with family who live far away." Or, "That might be true for some people, but for others, it provides a sense of community." Notice how we use words like might, some, and but to create balance. We avoid absolute statements. Instead of saying, "You are wrong," we say that might not be the whole story. This leads us nicely into the use of relative clauses, which are essential for combining ideas and creating complex sentences. A relative clause gives us more information about a noun. We use who for people, which for things, and where for places. For example, the man who lives next door is a doctor. The phone which I bought yesterday is broken. The city where I was born is very old. At a B2 level, we start to use non-defining relative clauses. These are clauses that add extra, non-essential information, and they are surrounded by commas. My neighbor, who is a very quiet man, plays the drums loudly. The commas indicate that the fact he is a quiet man is extra information. The main point is that he plays the drums. Using these clauses allows you to pack more detail into your sentences without starting a new one. Listen to the difference. I went to a cafe. The cafe is on Main Street. It serves great coffee. This is choppy. Now, listen to the B2 version. I went to a cafe on Main Street, which serves great coffee. Much better. Or, I went to a cafe on Main Street, which is known for its great coffee. Let's try to build one together. I want you to describe a movie you like. Start with the name. Then use a relative clause to describe the plot or the actors. For example, Titanic, which was released in 1997, is a tragic love story. Or, I watched a movie last night that made me cry. Try it now. Describe a movie or a book using a relative clause. As we continue to expand our skills, I want to focus on pronunciation, specifically on sentence stress for emphasis. In English, we can change the meaning of a sentence entirely just by stressing a different word. Consider the sentence, "I never said she stole my money." If I stress I, it implies that maybe someone else said it, but I didn't. If I stress never, I am strongly denying it. If I stress she, I am implying it was someone else who stole it. If I stress stole, maybe she borrowed it, but didn't steal it. If I stress my, maybe she stole someone else's money. This is powerful. When you listen to podcasts, pay attention to where the speaker puts the stress. It reveals their true intention or feeling. Let's practice this. I am going to say a sentence and give you a context. I want you to say the sentence stressing the correct word to fit the context. Sentence, I didn't take the car. Context, everyone thinks you took the car, but you didn't. You would stress, didn't. I didn't take the car. Context, you took the bike, not the car. You would stress, car. I didn't take the car. Context: someone else took the car, not you. You would stress I didn't take the car. This musicality of language is what makes you sound fluent. It takes practice, but it starts with listening for the stress. Let's move on to a new vocabulary theme: describing personalities. We often use positive adjectives like kind, funny, and smart. But English has a rich array of personality adjectives that are more precise. Instead of saying someone is funny, we could say they are witty, which means they are funny in a clever, quick way. Or they are hilarious, meaning extremely funny. Instead of saying someone is smart, we could say they are astute, meaning they are good at noticing things. Or they are scholarly, meaning they study a lot. For negative traits, instead of saying someone is mean, we might say they are spiteful, or arrogant, or insensitive. I want to teach you a wonderful idiom for describing someone who is very different from you, or who seems strange or unusual. We say they are an odd duck, or a bit eccentric. Eccentric is a polite way of saying someone is a little crazy or unconventional in a harmless way. We also have the phrase, a dark horse. This describes someone who keeps their skills or personality hidden and then surprises everyone by winning or doing something amazing. He was a dark horse in the competition. Nobody thought he would win, but he did. Let's try to describe a friend or family member using 3 new adjectives. Do not use good, bad, nice, or mean. Try to use words like reliable, optimistic, candid, or introverted. Here's my example. My best friend is incredibly loyal. She's also quite meticulous, meaning she pays attention to every detail. Sometimes, however, she can be a bit stubborn when she thinks she is right. Now your turn. Pause the audio and describe someone you know. Now, I want to introduce a grammar structure that is very common in news reports and formal podcasts: the passive voice. In the passive voice, the object of an active sentence becomes the subject. Instead of saying the company built the hotel, we say the hotel was built by the company. We use the passive voice when the action is more important than the person who did it, or when we don't know who did it. For example, the jewels were stolen. We don't know who stole them, so the passive is perfect here. Or, a new law was passed yesterday. We care about the law, not the specific politicians who voted for it. Passive constructions can be tricky because they use the verb to be plus the past participle. The mail is delivered every day. The decision was made yesterday. The bridge has been closed for repairs. In podcasts, you will hear this constantly when events are being described. Listen for the structure be plus past participle. Let's practice transforming a sentence from active to passive. Active: the chef prepared the meal. Passive: the meal was prepared by the chef. Active: they are cleaning the room. Passive: the room is being cleaned. Notice the continuous form is being cleaned. Let's try one more. Active: someone has stolen my wallet. Passive: my wallet has been stolen. We don't say by someone because it is unnecessary. Try to find an example of the passive voice in your surroundings today. Maybe a sign that says, road works are being carried out, or doors are automatically locked. We are making fantastic progress. I want to shift gears now and talk about phrasal verbs with the verb get. Get is one of the most versatile verbs in English, and mastering its phrasal verbs is a hallmark of the B2 level. We have get over, which means to recover from something, usually an illness or a breakup. We have get along with, which means to have a good relationship with someone. We have get by, which means to manage, usually with money or a language. I can get by in Spanish means I can survive with the little Spanish I know. And we have get away, which means to escape or go on a vacation. Let's put these into a context. Imagine you are telling a story about a difficult year. You might say, "It was tough. I had the flu for 3 weeks, and it took me a long time to get over it. At work, my boss was difficult, so we didn't get along very well. But I saved some money and managed to get away to the mountains for a weekend. That saved me." See how natural that sounds? Let's practice. I want you to tell me about a time you had to get over a disappointment, or tell me about someone you find it easy to get along with. Pause and speak. As we near the end of this masterclass, I want to touch on the use of so and such for emphasis. This is a simple structure, but incredibly effective for adding emotion to your speech. We use so with adjectives. The movie was so good. We use such with adjective plus noun. It was such a good movie. Many learners mix these up. Remember, if there is a noun, a movie, a day, a person, use such. It was such a beautiful day. He is such a nice guy. If there is no noun, use so. The day was so beautiful. He is so nice. You can also use these structures to add intensity to your stories. Instead of saying I was tired, say I was so tired that I fell asleep immediately. Instead of saying it was a long meeting, say it was such a long meeting that I thought it would never end. This structure, so that or such that, is excellent for storytelling. It shows consequences. Let's try one. I want you to describe a meal you had recently. Say it was so delicious that you ate too much, or it was such a delicious meal that you want to go back. Pause and try it. To wrap up this segment, I want to talk about the importance of pausing. In speaking, silence is powerful. When you are searching for a word, do not say, Just pause. A silent pause sounds thoughtful. A pause filled with sounds uncertain. When you are telling a story, a pause can build suspense. And then, suddenly, it happened. Learning to control your pacing, your pauses, and your stress is the final polish on your speaking ability. You do not need to speak fast to be fluent. In fact, the best speakers often speak quite slowly and clearly. I hope you are feeling more confident with future forms, relative clauses, the passive voice, and the many new vocabulary words we have covered today. We are building a strong foundation. Let's move forward now into our next layer of learning. One of the most challenging aspects of moving from B1 to B2 is mastering reported speech, or indirect speech. This is essential because so much of our communication involves reporting what others have said. When you listen to news podcasts, interview shows, or even just gossip with friends, you are constantly hearing reported speech. The basic rule is that when we report what someone said, we usually shift the tense back. If someone says, "I am happy," we report it as he said he was happy. The present simple becomes the past simple, but it gets more complex. If someone says, "I will call you," we report it as he said he would call me. Will becomes would. If someone says, "I have finished," we report it as she said she had finished. The present perfect becomes the past perfect. However, at a B2 level, we need to go beyond the simple mechanical rule of backshifting. We need to look at reporting verbs. Using said repeatedly can make your speech sound repetitive and childish. Native speakers use a rich variety of verbs to convey the tone and intention of the speaker. Consider the difference between these two sentences. He said he would be late, and he promised he would be late. The first is a simple statement of fact. The second implies a commitment, a guarantee. or compare. She said she didn't take the money with she denied taking the money. The second sentence is much stronger and more concise. It uses the verb denied followed by the gerund. Taking. This is a key B2 grammar point. Certain reporting verbs are followed by specific patterns. We suggest doing something. We apologize for doing something. We insist on doing something. Let's try to practice this transformation. I am going to give you a direct speech sentence, and I want you to report it using a more expressive verb. Ready? Here's the first one. The direct speech is, I am really sorry I broke your vase. How would you report that? You could say, she apologized for breaking the vase. Notice we change broke to breaking because apologize is followed by the gerund. Here is another one. Direct speech. You should really see a doctor. Reported. He advised me to see a doctor. Advise is followed by the object and the infinitive. And one more. Direct speech. I didn't eat the cake. Reported. He denied eating the cake. Deny is followed by the gerund. This variety of reporting verbs allows you to summarize conversations with precision and emotion. It is a powerful tool for storytelling. I want you to think about a conversation you had recently. Can you report a piece of advice someone gave you? Try to use the verb advised or suggested. Pause the audio and say it out loud. Moving on from the words people say, let's focus on the tiny words that hold our sentences together. Articles. The difference between a and the seems simple at first, but it is a notorious stumbling block for learners. At a B2 level, you need to master the use of the for specific reference and the zero article for generalizations. Listen to the difference between these two sentences. I love music, and I love the music you are playing. In the first sentence, I love music, there is no article. We use the zero article because I am talking about music in general, the entire concept of music. In the second sentence, I love the music, I am being specific. I am talking about a particular song or playlist that is happening right now. This distinction is crucial when discussing hobbies, professions, and likes. We say, I like cats, not I like the cats, unless you are talking about specific cats in your backyard. We say doctors help patients, not the doctors help the patients, when speaking about the profession generally. However, when we define a role, we use the. She is the CEO of the company. He is the best player on the team. Here, the defines a unique position. Let's practice this with a short story. Listen for how I use articles. Once upon a time, there was a king. The king lived in a castle. The castle was on a hill. Notice how the first time I mention the king, I say a king. He is new information, but the second time, I say the king because we now know who he is. This is the flow of information in English. We introduce with a or an, and we refer back with the. I want you to try to describe your job or your field of study. Use generalizations. For example, I am a teacher. I teach history. I love working with students. Notice I did not say the history or the students. I am speaking generally. Pause and try to describe your profession or studies now. Now, let's enrich our ability to describe actions with adverbs of degree. B1 learners often use very or really. I am very tired. It is really good. While this is correct, B2 learners have a wider palette. We can use words like absolutely, completely, utterly, slightly, fairly, and extremely. These words allow us to calibrate our intensity. If I say I am slightly tired, it is a small amount. If I say I am utterly exhausted, it is the maximum amount. Using the right adverb adds sophistication to your speech. Be careful, however, because some adverbs pair with certain adjectives. We usually say absolutely delicious, not extremely delicious. We say completely finished, not slightly finished. These are called strong collocations. Imagine you are reviewing a movie for a podcast. You could say the plot was extremely confusing or the acting was absolutely brilliant. These strong combinations leave a lasting impression. Let's try a quick substitution drill. I will say a sentence with very, and I want you to upgrade it with a more precise adverb. I am very hungry. You could say, I am absolutely starving. That sounds much more dramatic. The test was very hard. You could say, the test was incredibly difficult. The room was very messy. You could say the room was completely chaotic. See how the meaning becomes stronger and more visual? Try to describe your current mood using a stronger adverb than very. Maybe you are extremely busy, or slightly bored, or absolutely delighted. Pause and say your sentence. As we continue our masterclass, I want to shift gears to a topic that is vital for both travel and storytelling: describing places and scenery. When you listen to travel podcasts, you will hear hosts painting vivid pictures of landscapes. They do not just say, "It was a nice beach." They use sensory language. They talk about the golden sands stretching for miles, the azure water lapping at the shore, and the gentle breeze rustling the palm trees. Sensory language appeals to our five senses: sight, sound, smell, touch, and taste. Using this technique makes your descriptions immersive. Let me give you an example of a dull description versus a sensory one. Dull. The market was busy. Sensory. The market was a riot of color, with stalls piled high with crimson chilies and emerald herbs. The air was thick with the scent of exotic spices and frying onions, while vendors shouted their prices over the noise of the crowd. Can you smell the market? Can you hear it? That is the power of sensory details. At a B2 level, you should be aiming to include at least one sensory detail in your stories. I want you to think about your kitchen when you are cooking. Do not just say, "I cooked dinner." Describe the sizzle of the pan, the aroma of the garlic, or the vibrant color of the vegetables. Try to describe a place you know well, using at least one sensory detail. Pause the audio and speak. Let's move on to a more complex grammar structure that adds a sophisticated flair to your speaking. Inversion. Inversion happens when we change the normal order of subject and verb for emphasis or dramatic effect. We often use it in storytelling to create suspense. The most common way we use this is with negative adverbs at the beginning of a sentence. Normally, we would say, "I have never seen such a beautiful sunset." But using inversion, we say, "Never have I seen such a beautiful sunset." The word never pushes the auxiliary verb have in front of the subject I. It sounds much more poetic and formal. Other common phrases that trigger inversion are rarely, seldom, not only, and hardly. Instead of saying he rarely speaks about his past, you can say rarely does he speak about his past. Instead of saying I had hardly sat down when the phone rang, you say hardly had I sat down when the phone rang. This structure is a hallmark of C1 level English, but starting to use it at a B2 level will really impress listeners. It shows you have control over the rhythm and syntax of the language. Let's practice one of these structures together. I want you to finish this sentence. Not only did I finish the project on time, but... You could add, I also exceeded expectations. Repeat after me. Not only did I finish the project on time, but I also exceeded expectations. Try to create your own sentence starting with, never have I, Maybe never have I eaten such delicious food. Pause and try it. Now, I want to focus on a functional skill, managing conversations. In a podcast interview or a business meeting, you need to know how to interrupt politely, how to change the subject, and how to bring the conversation back to the point. Interrupting can be rude if not done correctly. In English, we use softeners. Instead of just stopping someone mid-sentence, we might say, "Sorry to interrupt, but," or "Can I just jump in here?" or "If I could just add something there." These phrases signal that you want to speak, but you respect the speaker. Changing the subject is another skill. If a conversation is dying or you want to move on, you can say, "By the way," to introduce a new topic, or "That reminds me of," to link the current topic to a new one. Or if you want to leave a topic, you can say, "Anyway, getting back to what we were saying." These discourse markers act as signposts for the listener. They help structure the flow of the talk. Let's practice interrupting. Imagine I am talking about my boring weekend. I want you to interrupt me politely to say you have to go. Ready? Listen to me start, and then interrupt. "So, I was watching the paint dry, and it was fascinating." Now you interrupt. Say something like, "Sorry to interrupt, Jessica, but I really must be going. Go ahead." Excellent. These functional phrases are the oil that keeps the engine of conversation running smoothly. Without them, interactions can feel jerky or rude. As we progress, I want to talk about the verb suggest. This is one of the most commonly misused verbs by intermediate learners. The confusion usually comes with what follows the verb. You cannot suggest someone to do something. That is incorrect. You can suggest an idea. You can suggest doing something. Or you can suggest that someone do something. This last one uses the subjunctive mood, which is quite formal. I suggest that he study harder. Notice I did not say studies. It is the base form of the verb. Let's look at some correct examples. I suggest going to the park. I suggest a break. I suggest that we leave early. Listen to the difference in meaning. If you say I suggest you to go, it sounds like a translation error. To correct this, simply remove the TU. I suggest you go. Or change the structure. I suggest going. This is a small correction that will instantly make you sound more native. I want you to make a suggestion right now. Suggest a place for lunch. Say, I suggest eating at, or I suggest that we go to. Pause and try it. Moving deeper into our masterclass, let's discuss how we describe trends and changes. This is particularly useful for those of you interested in business English or academic discussions, but it appears in daily life too. We often use verbs like increase, decrease, rise, fall, fluctuate, and stabilize. At a B1 level, you might say, the price went up. At a B2 level, you can say the price increased significantly, or there was a sharp rise in prices. We use adverbs and adjectives to describe the magnitude and the speed of the change. A dramatic increase, a slight fall, a steady growth. Imagine you were talking about the weather patterns in your country. You could say, in recent years, temperatures have risen steadily. We have seen a dramatic increase in storms. This vocabulary allows you to discuss statistics and news reports accurately. Let's practice. I want you to describe the traffic in your city. Is it getting better or worse? Try to use verbs like worsened or improved, and adverbs like gradually or rapidly. For example, traffic has gradually worsened over the last 5 years. Pause and speak. We are nearing the end of this segment, but I have one more interesting topic to share. The difference between make and do. This is a classic confusion because many languages use just one verb for both. In English, they have distinct meanings. Do is generally used for actions, tasks, and work. We do homework, do the dishes, do business, do exercise. Make is used for creating, producing, or causing something. We make a cake, make a mistake, make a decision, make money. A good rule of thumb is to ask yourself, am I performing an action do or creating a result make? Let's test this intuition. If you are preparing for an exam, you are doing revision. If you are building a bookshelf, you are making a bookshelf. If you choose a restaurant for dinner, you are making a decision. If you clean your room, you are doing the cleaning. I want you to try to use both verbs in one story. Maybe, yesterday, I made breakfast and then did the washing up. Or, I made a mistake at work, so I had to do extra work to fix it. Pause and try to create a sentence using both make and do. As we wrap up this part of our extensive session, I want to talk about the importance of silent letters in pronunciation. English is not a phonetic language, meaning we do not always pronounce words exactly how they are written. This is a major hurdle for listening comprehension. If you expect to hear every letter, you will be confused. Common examples include the K in knife and knee, the B in comb and thumb, the W in right and wrong, and the L in walk and talk. If you pronounce these silent letters, it can be difficult for native speakers to understand you. Listen to this sentence. I hurt my knee while I was walking. We say knee, not Q knee. We say walking, not wool king. Being aware of these silent letters will help you hear the boundaries between words. Let's practice a few. Repeat after me. The comb, the island, the castle, the doubt. Good. Pay attention to the spelling of these words when you read, but trust your ears when you listen. We have covered a tremendous amount of material today. We have explored reported speech, articles, adverbs of degree, sensory descriptions, inversion, conversation management, the verb suggest, trends, make versus do, and silent letters. Your brain is getting an incredible workout. Remember, the goal is not to memorize everything perfectly right now, but to expose yourself to these concepts in context. By hearing them in a story or a conversation, you are building a web of understanding. I am so proud of the effort you are putting in. Keep going, keep listening, and get ready for the next chapter of our Masterclass. My name is Jessica, and you are listening to English in Advance.